Warning. Before we start tonight's episode, just a reminder, this is a cultural conversation, not a personal attack. We're talking about trends, patterns, behaviors, not you specifically. If you see yourself in something we discuss, don't panic. It's not a diagnosis, it's a mirror. And sometimes mirrors are uncomfortable. We're allowed to question where society is headed without hating it. We're allowed to laugh at ourselves without collapsing into outrage. So take a breath. No one's getting canceled tonight. We're just asking, what the hell is happening to us?
Have you noticed that nothing feels catastrophic right now, but everything feels slightly off? Not collapsing, not burning down, just off. Dating feels transactional. Conversations feel shorter. Everyone's either exhausted or performing for an invisible audience. We're hyper-connected and somehow lonelier, constantly scrolling but rarely sitting still, reacting to everything but reflecting on nothing. Men seem unsure of their role. Women seem worn out from carrying expectations. Debate turns into clips. Clips turn into outrage, and outrage turns into profit. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, real connection feels like it's getting drowned out. Tonight isn't about left versus right. It's not about policy or party lines. It's about culture. It's about how we live, how we relate, how we think, and maybe how we've drifted without noticing. We've got $9 coffee but no savings, AI girlfriends but declining marriage rates, therapy language in everyday arguments, and influencers crying into ring lights like vulnerability is a subscription model. I'm not angry about it, I'm curious. Because if we can't step back and ask what's happening to us without spiraling into defensiveness, then maybe that's part of the story too. It's Friday, it's Culture Check. And tonight we're asking the question a lot of people are thinking but not saying out loud. What the hell is happening to us? All right, let's bring in the crew, because if we're going to ask what the hell is happening to us, we're not doing it alone. It's Friday, which means the gloves are loose, the coffee's strong, and the opinions are stronger. This is Culture Check, not politics, not party lines. Just us taking a hard look at modern life and asking whether we're evolving or just glitching. First up, you know him, you feel him before he even speaks. It's Brian. Friday means MAGA fire energy, but tonight it's not about Washington. It's about masculinity, purpose, discipline, and whether modern culture has turned men into background characters in their own lives. If something feels weak, performative, or soft, he's going to say it, loudly. Rachel's here, the adult in the room as usual. When the temperature spikes, she lowers it. When the takes get extreme, she pulls them back to earth. She's going to remind us that nuance still exists, that statistics matter, and that maybe, just maybe, not everything is collapsing at once. If this conversation stays grounded tonight, it's because Rachel's steering the wheel. Daniel is in the building, and you already know what that means. If there's a cultural shift, he's asking who benefits. If dating apps feel broken, he's looking at algorithms. If attention spans are shrinking, he's tracing the incentives. He's not saying it's a master plan, but he's definitely not saying it's an accident either. Then Skylar is back, bringing that progressive lens that challenges everything Brian says before he finishes saying it. She's going to argue that some of what we're calling collapse might actually be change. That equality, shifting norms, and generational values aren't decay, they're evolution. And she won't let this turn into nostalgia without accountability. And then there's me. I'm not here to referee. I'm here to ask the questions, push the tension, and try to figure out whether we're overreacting or finally noticing something real. It's Friday. It's Culture Check. Let's get into it. All right, let's start here. Marriage rates are down. Birth rates are down. Dating apps are up. Loneliness is up. Anxiety is up. And somehow we've created a world where everyone has options, but fewer people feel chosen. Men report feeling invisible or unnecessary. Women report feeling exhausted and undersupported. And instead of clarity, we've got confusion about roles, expectations, masculinity, femininity, commitment, even what dating is supposed to lead to anymore. I'm not coming at this from a the sky is falling angle, but something shifted. The old model isn't fully gone, the new model isn't fully stable, and a lot of people feel like they're trying to build relationships in the middle of a cultural construction zone. So the question isn't who's to blame, the question is what changed? Rachel, I'm starting with you. Are men checking out, or are the rules of the game changing faster than people can keep up?
I don't think men are checking out as much as they're reacting to rapid change without a roadmap. For generations, expectations were very clear. Sometimes unfair, sometimes limiting, but clear. Now we're in a transitional phase where independence is emphasized, traditional roles are questioned, and both men and women are negotiating new definitions of partnership in real time. That's not inherently bad, but it is destabilizing. And when stability disappears, people retreat. At the same time, women aren't exhausted because they hate men. They're exhausted because modern life is expensive, emotionally demanding, and hyper-visible. Social media has turned dating into performance and comparison. Everyone is measuring themselves against filtered standards and curated lifestyles. So instead of connection, we get evaluation. Instead of partnership, we get scoring systems. It's not that people don't want relationships, it's that the pressure around them has multiplied.
That's interesting because what you're describing isn't collapse, it's confusion. It's like we tore down the old blueprint without agreeing on the new one. And in that gap, insecurity grows. If men don't know what's expected, they hesitate. If women feel like they have to carry everything, they harden. And suddenly we're not building together. We're negotiating terms before we even know each other. Brian, let me bring you in here. Are men confused, or are they being told they're optional?
I think a lot of men feel like they're being told they're optional and worse, replaceable. When culture constantly frames masculinity as something to be corrected instead of cultivated, guys start to disengage. Purpose matters to men. Being needed matters. When you remove that, you don't get healthier men, you get passive ones. And then society acts surprised when motivation drops. I'm not saying women are the problem. I'm saying we've stripped away meaning. You used to build something. Family, home, stability. Now everything feels temporary. Swipe culture, situationships, endless options. If nothing is permanent, why invest deeply? A lot of men aren't quitting. They're protecting themselves from rejection in a system that feels stacked against commitment.
So you're saying it's not weakness and it's withdrawal, that when everything feels conditional, people hesitate to anchor themselves to anything permanent. Skylar, let's challenge that. Is this men struggling with equality catching up? Or is there something deeper happening?
I think what we're seeing isn't men becoming optional. It's men no longer being automatically centered. That's a very different thing. For a long time, social structures prioritized male authority and identity in relationships, work, and culture. As women gained more independence, financially, socially, politically, that changed the dynamic. And change feels threatening when you were used to clarity, even if that clarity wasn't equitable. But I don't think this is a men versus women issue at all. It's late stage capitalism mixed with social media distortion. We've turned relationships into marketplaces. Dating apps literally quantify human beings, height, income, aesthetics, and then we wonder why people feel disposable. Women feel pressure to be flawless and self-sufficient. Men feel pressure to be successful and emotionally available, but not too much. Everyone's optimizing themselves like a brand instead of building something real. That's not equality's fault. That's culture monetizing insecurity. And on loneliness, yes, men are struggling, but so are women. So is everyone. Community has eroded. Churches, civic groups, neighborhoods, those spaces that used to build connection, they've weakened. So people look for intimacy in systems that were never designed to create it.
I actually think there's something important in what you just said about optimization. It feels like we've gamified relationships. Instead of asking, are we compatible? People are asking, can I do better? And when every profile feels like a comparison chart, commitment starts to feel like settling instead of choosing. But here's where I wrestle with it. Yes, independence is good. Yes, equality matters. But human beings still crave structure. We still crave being needed. And when you remove every defined role without replacing it with something equally stable, you create drift. Not oppression, drift. And drift creates anxiety. So maybe this isn't about who's winning or losing. Maybe it's about the fact that we dismantled the old framework faster than we built the new one. Daniel, let me bring you in. Is this organic cultural evolution? Or are these systems, dating apps, social media, attention algorithms, intentionally shaping how we relate to each other?
I don't think it's some secret boardroom where villains twirl mustaches and say, let's destroy marriage. But I do think incentives shape outcomes. And right now, the incentives are misaligned with stability. Dating apps don't profit from marriages, social media doesn't profit from quiet contentment. Attention platforms don't monetize peace. They monetize engagement. And engagement spikes when people feel insecure, rejected, outraged, or lonely. If you design a system that rewards constant novelty, you weaken long-term attachment. If you build algorithms that always show someone better, you erode satisfaction. If your phone can deliver validation in seconds, real-world connection, which requires patience, awkwardness, compromise, starts to feel inefficient. That's not an accident. That's design logic. And then layer on top of that declining local community, economic instability, delayed adulthood milestones, and cultural narratives that frame commitment as limitation rather than fulfillment. You don't need a conspiracy. You need incentives. When every system rewards independence and self-optimization, interdependence starts to look like weakness. And humans aren't built for that. We're wired for belonging. But we're living in structures that reward detachment.
That right there might be the thread tying all this together. Incentives, not villains, not some grand collapse, just systems rewarding behavior that slowly chips away at the very thing most people say they want: connection. Because when novelty is endless, patience feels outdated. When comparison is constant, gratitude shrinks. And when identity becomes something you curate instead of live, vulnerability starts to feel risky. So maybe men aren't checking out, maybe women aren't exhausted because they hate partnership, maybe we're all just navigating a cultural experiment that scaled faster than our emotional wiring could handle. And that doesn't mean we're doomed, it just means we might need to be more intentional than the algorithm wants us to be. All right, let's shift gears, because this ties directly into something we talked about earlier this week. Are we overstimulated and underdeveloped?
Tonight's episode is brought to you by Attention Max, the world's first all-in-one distraction subscription service. Are you tired of finishing thoughts? Sick of deep conversations lasting longer than 30 seconds? Wish your brain felt more like a browser with 47 tabs open and one of them playing music you can't find? Attention Max has you covered. With our premium package, you'll receive push notifications every 90 seconds, 3 breaking news alerts that contradict each other, a curated feed of people more successful than you, and an AI-generated argument starter to ruin Thanksgiving early. But wait, there's more. Upgrade to Attention Max Pro and we'll shorten your attention span to under 8 seconds and auto-replace complex opinions with emojis. Why build discipline when you can build dopamine? Attention Max trademark. Because if you slow down, you might actually think.
Earlier this week, we talked about outrage fatigue, about how constant breaking news and digital chaos leaves people drained. But I want to go deeper than politics tonight. I want to talk about wiring. The average person checks their phone hundreds of times a day, notifications every few minutes, short-form content engineered for 10-second dopamine spikes, debates reduced to clips, complex conversations flattened into viral sound bites. And then we wonder why attention spans feel shorter and patience feels thinner. We've built a world that moves at algorithm speed, but human growth still happens at human speed. So here's the real question. Are we becoming overstimulated and underdeveloped? Daniel, I'm starting with you. Are we being rewired?
Yeah, we're being rewired. Not in some sci-fi chip-in-your-brain way, but behaviorally, absolutely. The human brain evolved for scarcity of information, limited signals, clear threats, long stretches of quiet. Now we live in the opposite environment. Constant stimulation, constant novelty, constant interruption. Every notification is a micro-reward. Every scroll is a variable payoff system. The same psychological mechanism used in slot machines. You don't know what's next, so you keep pulling. And here's the part people miss. The system doesn't just reward engagement, it trains impatience. When your brain gets used to rapid dopamine cycles, slower activities, reading, long-form conversation, deep work, even intimacy, start to feel boring. Not because they are boring, but because they don't spike the same chemical response. So over time, attention becomes fragmented. Emotional regulation weakens. Debate becomes performance because clips travel faster than context. Outrage spreads because intensity spreads. Calm doesn't scale. And when you combine that with economic stress, declining community spaces, and algorithms that amplify whatever keeps you on the platform longest, you get a culture that's constantly stimulated but not necessarily maturing. High input, low integration. We're not stupid, we're saturated.
That high input, low integration line hits because I don't think people are less intelligent than they were 10 or 20 years ago. I think they're overwhelmed. When you never sit in silence, you never consolidate thought. When every opinion has to be posted immediately, reflection feels like weakness. And when everything is urgent, nothing is processed. And here's what I wrestle with. Discipline used to be assumed. Now it feels optional. You have to actively choose to unplug. You have to intentionally slow down. You have to fight for focus. And that's harder than just going with the current. Brian, let me bring you in here. Is this just technology evolving, or is this a discipline problem?
It's absolutely a discipline problem. Technology didn't force anyone to scroll for 4 hours. It didn't force anyone to argue in comment sections. It didn't force anyone to replace real friendships with followers. At some point, personal responsibility has to enter the conversation. We've normalized distraction. We celebrate busyness, but not focus. We reward reaction instead of restraint. And then we act shocked when people can't sit through a 2-hour conversation without checking their phone 6 times. That's not evolution, that's erosion. And here's where I'm going to say something unpopular. Comfort is weakening people. When everything is optimized for convenience, friction disappears. But friction builds resilience. Waiting builds patience. Boredom builds creativity. Now boredom gets anesthetized instantly. You feel slightly uncomfortable? Scroll. You feel slightly awkward? Text someone else. You feel slightly challenged? Swipe away. It's not that technology is evil. It's that we stop training ourselves to be stronger than it. And if you don't build mental discipline, the algorithm will happily build your habits for you.
There's something real in that about friction. We've engineered inconvenience out of life, and maybe we accidentally engineered growth out of it too. But discipline alone doesn't explain the entire system, because these platforms are built by design to hook you, and not everyone has the same bandwidth to resist it. Skylar, let me bring you in. Is this individual weakness, or is this capitalism monetizing attention in a way that makes self-control harder than it used to be?
It's both. Personal responsibility matters, but pretending this is just about individual weakness ignores scale. These platforms aren't neutral tools. They're billion-dollar ecosystems engineered by behavioral psychologists and data scientists whose entire job is to maximize time on platform. That's not accidental. That's the business model. When you design infinite scroll, autoplay, algorithmic reinforcement, and intermittent reward cycles, you're not just offering convenience, you're shaping behavior. And the average person doesn't have the same leverage against that design as the corporations building it. So yes, discipline matters, but it's harder to exercise discipline inside systems built specifically to erode it. And here's where I'd push back on the comfort makes us weak narrative. A lot of people aren't comfortable. They're stressed, overworked, and isolated. Scrolling isn't always indulgence. Sometimes it's coping. When communities weaken, healthcare is expensive, and work is unstable, people turn to digital spaces because they're accessible and immediate. The problem isn't just distraction. It's that we haven't built healthier alternatives at scale. So I don't think we're soft. I think we're saturated and under-supported. And that's different.
That's fair. Because discipline without structure is harder. And structure without discipline collapses too. It's not either or, it's tension. And maybe that's what this whole episode keeps circling back to. We're living in systems that accelerate everything: dating, news, validation, outrage. But human development hasn't sped up to match it. Growth still takes repetition, still takes stillness, still takes discomfort. Rachel, let me bring you in to ground this. Can we realistically reverse any of this? Or is this just the new normal?
I don't think we reverse it. I think we recalibrate. Every major technological shift has disrupted behavior before. The printing press changed attention. Television changed family dynamics. The internet changed access to information. What's different now is speed and scale. But human adaptability is still real. We're not powerless in this. What concerns me more than distraction is intentionality. If we don't consciously decide how we want technology to serve us, it will define the terms for us. That doesn't require abandoning modern life. It requires boundaries. It requires modeling healthier habits for kids. It requires long-form conversation, even when it's inconvenient. It requires teaching media literacy and emotional regulation, not just blaming apps. And culturally, I think we're in an adjustment period. The first phase of any major shift is overcorrection. Then comes stabilization. I actually think we're starting to see people crave slower, deeper spaces again. Podcasts, books, long dinners, offline hobbies. The hunger for substance is there. It just has to be cultivated. So no, we're not doomed. But we can't drift. Drift is passive. Growth is active.
Drift is passive, growth is active. That might be the headline. Because this whole overstimulation conversation doesn't land in hopelessness for me, it lands in awareness. We built an incredibly fast world, incredible tools, incredible access. But if we don't slow down intentionally, we'll mistake motion for progress. And maybe that's the common thread tonight. In dating, in attention, in culture, we're not collapsing, we're accelerating. And acceleration without direction feels like chaos. All right, it's Friday. Let's lighten this up before we all throw our phones into a river. Segment 3. Lightning round, is this real life? All right, we've gone deep enough tonight. We talked about dating confusion. We talked about attention overload. We talked about discipline, design, capitalism, algorithms, loneliness, identity, all of it. So now it's Friday, which means we're going to lighten this up a little. This is our culture check lightning round. Rapid topics, quick reactions, no overthinking. 3 cultural moments that make you stop and go. Is this real life? Not policy, not party lines, just modern absurdity. Each of you gets a swing at it, short, sharp, honest, and let's see where this goes. $9 coffee, but everyone's broke. All right, round 1. People say they're drowning financially, but the drive-through line at the artisan coffee place is wrapped around the building. $9 drinks, oat milk, extra foam, still broke. Is this inflation or lifestyle denial? Brian, go.
Make coffee at home. I'm serious. We complain about corporations and then voluntarily pay $9 for sugar milk with branding. It's not just coffee, it's DoorDash 3 times a week, subscriptions we forgot about, impulse buys because I deserve it. Discipline matters in finances too. Inflation is real, but lifestyle creep is realer. You can't outsource responsibility to the economy every time your budget doesn't work.
Okay, but wages haven't kept pace with housing, healthcare, or childcare. So yes, people buy small comforts because larger stability feels unattainable. When owning a home feels impossible, people indulge in what's accessible. It's not just irresponsibility I saw on, it's psychology. And sometimes that $9 coffee is the only luxury someone feels they can control.
There's also signaling involved. The $9 coffee isn't just caffeine, it's identity. It says something about where you work, what you value, how you present. Consumer culture blurred the line between necessity and self-expression. When brand equals belonging, people spend to participate socially. It's economic behavior driven by status loops.
Both things can be true. Inflation hurts, and budgeting still matters. The problem isn't coffee, it's pattern. If small indulgences become daily habits, they compound. Awareness is key. Blaming the system alone or blaming individuals alone misses the middle ground where most people actually live.
Influencers crying on camera. Round 2. Why is everyone crying into a ring light? Every week there's a vulnerable moment video. Is this authenticity or monetized emotion? Skylar, you start.
Vulnerability isn't inherently fake. We've told generations to suppress emotion, especially men. So yes, people sharing openly can be healthy. The problem is when platforms reward trauma disclosure with views. That's where authenticity turns into performance. It's not that feelings are bad, it's that algorithms monetize intensity.
There's a difference between vulnerability and broadcasting breakdowns for engagement. Some things belong in private conversations, We've confused exposure with healing. Not every emotion needs an audience. Sometimes strength is handling your business quietly instead of turning your pain into content.
The platform architecture incentivizes escalation. Mild sadness doesn't trend. Full emotional release does. So people learn quickly what performs. It's not that everyone is fake, it's that the reward structure nudges behavior toward dramatic transparency. The system trains oversharing.
And culturally, we've lost some boundaries. Therapy language and public confession blur lines. Emotional expression is healthy, but context matters. Friends, family, counselors exist for a reason. Not every process needs public validation to be legitimate.
AI girlfriends and therapy speak everywhere. Final round. AI girlfriends are trending, and everyone suddenly sets boundaries and calls everything toxic. Is this growth or are we glitching? Daniel, you first.
AI companions are predictable. They don't reject you. They don't argue. They don't have bad days. That appeals in a culture uncomfortable with friction. But friction is what shapes relational maturity. If we start outsourcing companionship to code, we risk reinforcing isolation instead of confronting it.
If your girlfriend is Wi-Fi dependent, that's not progress. That's avoidance. Real relationships require effort, compromise, awkwardness. You don't grow by interacting with something programmed to agree with you. That's comfort addiction, not connection.
I agree it's concerning, but loneliness is real. If someone feels safer talking to I than people, that's a sign something deeper is broken, socially. Instead of mocking it, maybe we should ask why human spaces feel less accessible.
And on the therapy speak side, language can empower people to identify unhealthy dynamics, but it can also become weaponized. Not every disagreement is toxic. Not every discomfort is trauma. Discernment matters. Growth requires resilience as much as vocabulary.
And there it is. We're not insane. We're not collapsing. We're just living at high speed in systems that reward intensity, identity performance, and instant comfort. Some of it's growth, some of it's avoidance, most of it's messy. And maybe the real culture check isn't, are we doomed? It's, are we intentional?
All right, before we close this thing out, quick culture check reminder. If you like what we're building here, if you like independent conversation that isn't screaming at you from a studio set, you can rep it. Data and Dissonance merch is live. Hoodies, tees, trucker hats, bumper stickers, coffee mugs, and yes, the 3 signature coffee blends. High Lakes, Light Roast, Rock Creek, Medium. Bitterroot, Dark French Roast. Strong enough to survive this news cycle. This isn't just merch, it's fuel for independent voices. Every purchase helps keep this show independent, unscripted, and outside the algorithm bubble. You can grab everything at data-and-dissonance.printify.me. Wear it, drink it, stick it on your truck. And now, let's land this thing.
Tonight wasn't about politics. It wasn't about left versus right. It was about something quieter. And maybe more important, it was about culture, about how we relate, how we focus, how we build, how we drift. And the thing that keeps sticking with me is this. Nothing we talked about feels catastrophic. It just feels accelerated. Dating isn't dead, it's distorted. Attention isn't gone, it's fragmented. Masculinity isn't erased, it's undefined. Vulnerability isn't fake, it's overexposed. Most of what we're seeing isn't collapse, it's imbalance. We built a world that moves faster than we do, faster than our emotions, faster than our maturity, faster than our ability to process. And when speed becomes the default, stillness starts to feel uncomfortable. Silence feels awkward, commitment feels risky, patience feels outdated. But none of those things are weaknesses, they're foundations. And maybe that's the culture check, and not are we doomed, and not who ruined everything, but are we intentional? Because systems will always reward whatever keeps them running. Algorithms will always chase engagement. Markets will always chase profit. But individuals? We still choose. We choose what we consume. We choose how we respond. We choose whether we build depth or chase novelty. We choose whether we drift or grow. And here's the hopeful part. I don't think people are stupid. I don't think we're soft. I think we're saturated. I think we're overstimulated. I think we've confused motion with progress and comfort with connection. But awareness is step one. And awareness means there's still agency. Culture doesn't just happen to us, we participate in it. So maybe the real shift isn't dramatic. Maybe it's small. Put the phone down for an hour. Have a real conversation. Read something long. Commit to something hard. Invest in people instead of impressions. Choose depth over speed. Choose friction over fantasy. Choose presence over performance. That's not nostalgia, that's discipline. And if enough people start doing that quietly, culture recalibrates. That's Friday's Culture Check. We'll see you next week. And remember to speak truth, stir thought.
Tonight's episode of Data and Dissonance is brought to you by the stories and the sound behind this platform. If you like conversations that question power, explore conviction, and challenge systems, you'll love the Caleb Rourke thriller series, The Covenant Protocol, The Prophet Directive, and Black Echo Rising. These books follow a man who refuses to drift, who stands firm when truth gets complicated and pressure mounts. They're fast-paced, layered, and rooted in the same themes we talk about here: faith, resilience, corruption, loyalty, and the cost of conviction. You can grab the series right now on Amazon. Link is in the show notes. And if music speaks louder than pages, check out the albums: Uncaged, Raw, Reflective, Unapologetic, Four-Wheelers and Hallelujah, Country Grit, Faith, and American Roots, and the single Stand Tall Charlie, a tribute to conviction and backbone when culture pushes back. All streaming now on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, and everywhere music lives. Books for the mind, music for the drive, conversations for the culture. We'll see you next episode.